Chapter 299. Mysterious Waterpool. After returning from the palace, Kang Tian continued to stay at the Heavy Iron King's royal mansion to accompany Grandpa. During this period, he gave some of the pills that he had exchanged from the contribution hall to Grandpa for cultivation. His own talent was superb, and he didn't necessarily need pills to improve his cultivation, not to mention that with his current strength, when he waited for the battlefield of the righteous devils, wouldn't he still need fewer pills? On the contrary, his grandfather's qualifications were low. If there were no pills, he didn't know how long it would take to cultivate to the out-of-body stage. I'm afraid that even with these pills, he might not be able to cultivate to the outbreathing stage, because in order to break through the outbreathing stage, one has to comprehend the will, and Wang Tixiong had only comprehended only 10% of his will now. However, Kang Tian could only do his best. At least with these pills, he could help his grandpa raise his cultivation quite a bit. Chola, you're preparing to return to the Heavenly Dao sect, right? When Wang Tixiong saw Kang Tian handing over the pills to himself, like he was arranging for the aftermath, and instructing himself on many things, he couldn't help but feel his heart clench, knowing that this grandson of his was afraid that he would have to leave. Grandfather. Kang Tian sniffed. There was reluctance in his eyes, but he still had to continue on the road of cultivation, because he still had to find his parents. It's okay. Grandpa understands. A good man's ambition is to return to the world that truly belongs to you. You will always be Grandpa's pride, Wang Tixiong said with a smile. Although he was also very reluctant in his heart, he did not show it on his face, but hid it in his heart. He didn't want Kang Tian to travel to that cruel cultivation world with a single attachment. He only hoped that his grandson would be able to ascend to the peak without any attachment. Grandpa, the next time I come back, I will be the holy son of the Heavenly Dao sect. Kang Tian solemnly looked at the old man in front of him and made a promise. Grandpa looks forward to that day. Wang Tixiong revealed a pleased smile. 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. Kang Tian had been cultivating in seclusion until he had raised his cultivation to the 8th level of the Yuanying stage, before he came out of seclusion to bid farewell to Wang Tixiong. On this day, the Heavy Iron King's royal mansion was very lively. The Jin family master, the Wind Edge master, the Zhao family master, and other dignitaries of the imperial capital, who had learnt of Kang Tian's impending departure, had come to see him off. Even some of the cultivators in the imperial capital who had learnt of the news had also come to watch in front of the Heavy Iron King's royal mansion. This time, when Kang Tian returned, many of the imperial capital's cultivators hadn't seen his person, so they wanted to take this opportunity to witness the Hegemony King's honor and glory. Amidst the attention of all, within the Heavy Iron King's royal mansion, two figures slowly took off into the air, and then the light erupted, and these two figures were like bright meteors, heading towards the sky *********, Heavenly Dao sect, Dark Gold Peak. Kang Tian and Little Gold descended from the sky as they followed the familiar path to the palace, where the law enforcement elder resided. This time, when they came back, they didn't take the teleportation array, because that teleportation array was one way in the first place, set up by the Heavenly Dao sect in order to prevent enemies from entering the interior of the Heavenly Dao sect through the teleportation array. Therefore, they could only fly all the way back for a full half year. Of course, for Yuanying stage cultivators, half a year was just a blink of an eye. At today's cultivation level, Kang Tian didn't care about time anymore. Who knew that if he closed his eyes one day, it would be several years or decades that had passed. Brother, when are you going to head to the Orthodox battlefield? On the way, Little Gold asked with a face full of anticipation. His eyes were full of wariness, and he was very eager for the Orthodox demon battlefield. Let's give it some more time. My 9 turns Zhuan Gong in they're about to enter the peak of the 4th layer. By then my strength will have increased quite a bit, and it won't be too late to head to the orthodox demon battlefield." Kang Qian hesitated for a moment and said, the battle with Li Chongjiao had allowed his 9-turn Zhuanggong to advance to the peak of the late 4th layer, and after more than a year of cultivation, his 9-turn Zhuanggong was not far from breaking through to the peak of the 4th layer. At that time, his strength would once again be raised by another level. And for the crisis-ridden battlefield of righteousness and devilry, enhanced strength was naturally better. Little Gold nodded in understanding. He had also been cultivating very hard during this period of time, and had already risen from the 4th layer of the Yuanying stage to the 5th layer of the Yuanying stage, increasing his strength by quite a lot. Yurbaki in the darkness of the palace, the law enforcement elder looked down at Kang Qian, who was standing respectfully below, and his majestic voice slowly sounded, "Apprentice son pays his respects to master." Kang Qian respectfully bowed. Despite his much enhanced cultivation, his heart was still incomparably apprehensive when facing the law enforcement elder, because the elder of law enforcement was the top existence of the Flood continent, belonging to the world-defying powerhouses that the Flood continent would have to tremble if they hid their feet for a moment. Anyone else in front of him would be in awe. "I have heard that a strange change has occurred over at Fendu Mountain. Do you know some news when you go back this time?" The law enforcement elder nodded and then asked. Kang Qian was secretly shocked at his words. He didn't expect that the law enforcement elder had already got the news. It seemed that the intelligence department of the Heavenly Dao sect was far more powerful than he had imagined. Apprentice does know some news. After the shock, Kang Qian then told the law enforcement elder what he knew, especially about the drought demon's 3 corpses being united. He was blunt. After hearing this, the elder of law enforcement was silent, the stars disillusioned in his deep gaze as he fell into deep thought. Kang Qian stood respectfully below. 3 corpses in one. What a corpse-catching sect. I would like to see how you 3 corpses unite. Humph. A stern color flashed in the eyes of the law enforcement elder, and he coldly snorted. Afterwards, the law enforcement elder looked at the Kang Qian below and said indifferently, "I will deal with this matter. You don't need to pay attention to it. The orthodox and demonic battlefield is full of crises, so prepare yourself well, and don't lose face in my law enforcement lineage. Master, don't worry. Disciple will not disgrace master." Kang Qian's eyes flickered with confidence as he sniffed. The law enforcement elder nodded his head in satisfaction. Then he seemed to remember something and said, "Your 2nd senior brother's residence is suitable for cultivating the 9 revolutions Zhuanggong. With your current strength, you can stay in it for a month, so you can go there on your own to cultivate in the future." "Yes, master." Kang Qian was a little excited when he heard this. He had always been curious about the place where his 2nd senior brother lived, but he hadn't had the chance to go there before because he was in the spirit sealing space. And then after he came back, he was delayed because of his return to the Great Tang country. At first, 3rd senior brother had said that the place where 2nd senior brother lived was very suitable for cultivating the 9 revolution Zhuanggong, and told him to definitely go there to have a look when he was strong in the future, something he had always remembered. I wonder what secret 2nd senior brother's residence has. Kang Qian thought secretly in his heart. "All right, you go down." The law enforcement elder waved his hand and closed his eyes as Kang Qian respectfully saluted before leaving. After exiting the Dark Palace, Kang Qian didn't rush to his 2nd senior brother's residence. Instead, he first returned to the bamboo forest to take a look and realized that his 3rd senior brother hadn't come back yet. Before heading to his 2nd senior brother's residence together with Little Gold, while traveling to the 2nd senior brother's residence, Kang Qian also went to the elder senior brother's residence to take a look there, and found that the elder senior brother was also absent, not knowing where he was going. Not long after, Kang Qian and Xiao Jin arrived at the 2nd senior brother's residence. and he shouted out to the large volcano in front of him, "Second senior brother." Kang Tian shouted a few times and found that no one answered, immediately knowing that second senior brother was not there. Strange, eldest senior brother and second senior brother aren't there either. Could it be that they have gone to the orthodox demon battlefield just like third senior brother? Kang Tian was very curious in his heart. He had no right to inquire about the whereabouts of the holy sons of the Heavenly Tao sect. Even he was in the Heavenly Tao sect. It was very difficult to see a few holy sons. All of these people seemed to be out of the sect and didn't know where they went to practice. Of course, he was at Dark Gold Peak and had heard some information. It was said that these Sun level figures were all competing with each other in another place, working towards the harmonization stage. Forget it, I'll naturally know about it when I advance to the divine separation stage later and become a son of the Heavenly Tao sect. Kang Tian shook his head, then brought Little Gold and ran towards the large volcano ahead. The temperature escaping from the volcano was very high, and before he even got close, the scorching air waves caused him to sweat profusely, and it was like a hot fire was strung up in his heart, so uncomfortable. Even my fleshly body, which is close to the middle grade treasure artifact level, it's surprisingly difficult to resist. No wonder my master said that I can only hold out for a month. I really don't know how strong that pervert of a second senior brother is. Feeling the temperature escaping from the volcano, Kang Tian's face changed slightly, and his eyes became much more gloomy. When he first saw his second senior brother staying here for a long time, he was still a bit unimpressed, always thinking that this volcano was no big deal, and only now did he realize how ignorant he was at that time. "Brother, the temperature here is too high. I'm afraid I won't be able to last 7 days." Little Gold on the side was also sweating profusely and said, he was even worse than Kang Tian. He had already transported his thick true essence to resist. "Be careful, leave if you can't hold on. Don't fight hard," Kang Tian reminded. The two of them continued to advance. Upon reaching the volcano, the temperature around them raised to the extreme. Even Kang Tian had to release his true essence to resist the heat. "Go in and see what's inside." Kang Tian looked up at the tall volcano with a hint of curiosity in his eyes. They then lifted their true essence and rose into the air, flying towards the crater of the volcano. The huge crater spewed out scorching waves of fire, which was astonishing. They carefully avoided the waves of fire and entered it through the gap in the middle before jumping down. Inside the volcano, a deep red pool of water, wrapped in the boundless magma surrounding it, an unknown layer of rock separating them. Not far from the pool of water, there were stone tables and chairs, surrounded by array formations and prohibitions that insulated the scorching temperature. "Is this where second senior brother lives?" Kang Tian strangely surveyed the surroundings. This place was far simpler than he had imagined, and there wasn't much to draw attention to. He really didn't know why Master said that this place could speed up the cultivation of the 9 turn Zhuanggong. Could it be this pool of water? Kang Tian's gaze couldn't help but look towards this small water pool in front of him. Rather than a water pool, it was more like a pond, which could only accommodate 7 or 8 people. This couldn't be prepared by second senior brother for bathing, right? Kang Tian thought so. If there was anything noteworthy about this water pool in front of him, it would be that the water was deep red, transmitting a subtle aura. "Brother, this water pool doesn't seem to have a high temperature. I want to go in and take a bath." Little Gold also noticed the water pool and couldn't help but call out. At the moment, he was covered in sweat. Seeing this water pool, the first thing that came to his mind was to jump in and take a bath. "Well, be careful," Kang Tian nodded, although he felt that this water pool was a bit strange. But since his master had allowed himself to come here to cultivate, there must not be any danger. Otherwise he would have definitely warned him beforehand. Puff! Hearing Kang Tian's permission, Little Gold excitedly jumped down at that moment, and he seemed to feel the cool pool water as a comfortable expression began to appear on his face. However, his expression immediately solidified, followed by a roar. "Zhu brother, this pool water hurts me." Xiao Jing jumped down, and before a few moments, he immediately jumped out, only to see red smoke coming from his body, and his entire skin was permeated with red light. Kang Tian was shocked, and hurriedly probed out his divine thoughts to check Little Gold's situation, and found that there was no abnormality, and immediately sighed in relief.